Hello folks and welcome into another video from thefanpub.com. This is Alan's list of the top 10 boom or bust candidates for this year's draft. People who have very, very big upside, but also they're risky players, for one reason or another, which we'll go on to explain. Sean made his list last week. My list is very different. I say very different. It's got 8 different players on it. 2 are the same. My first one is Adrian Peterson. I'm sure you'll all have heard of him. One of the elite running backs of our time, if not the elite running back of our time. Obviously, he missed the season due to controversial circumstances, and then he suffered an injury. So we haven't really seen much of him for the last sort of 2 years, really. But we know what he can do when he's fit. Watching various social media videos, you can see that the fitness is still there. But it's very different, actually doing it on the pitch. What I will say is he's got a massive upside because he's now in the best offense he's ever been in. You can't load the box when you've got Drew Brees, playing at quarterback. So Adrian Peterson is actually got massive upside. If anything happened to Ingram, and by the way, last year, look at Hightower. He got loads and loads of touches in that offense, even though Ingram was fully fit. So, got to wonder why the Ingram's face, it doesn't really fit there, or they're not convinced by him, definitely. If you look at the Saints in the past, they've had a 3-pronged offense before and actually been an RB1, but it's 3 players making up the numbers. This could happen again as well, so you got to bear that in mind, really. But the upside is massive and the value isn't too bad. But you do risk the injury side, which we know, with aging players in the NFL, especially running backs, they do, decline after 30 normally. But is Peterson a normal running back? Well, that's a gamble, isn't it? The second player I've got on my list is Keenan Allen. Now, Keenan Allen, he's probably Los Angeles Chargers his number one wide receiver. But, only played 9 games the last 2 seasons, I think. So, although last year's injury was a freak accident, or freak incident, I should say, it's still a bit worrying, isn't he, that he hasn't made the pitch for 2 years, really. He would hurt you both seasons you drafted him, and for that reason, he's got to be risky. Upside, though, he very, very much passes the eye test, I think. It's in an offense that throws a lot. Rivers throws for thousands of yards every year, and Keenan Allen and him linked up quite well when they have played. So lots and lots of upside, but obviously the risk is still there. My third player is Kevin White. Talk about boom or bust. All we see is bust. He's been bust for 2 years, hasn't he? There's loads of hype about his athleticism and, what he might do if he comes in. And no, if you want to spend a low pick on him, it might be worth the risk. But for me, there's so much. Well, we haven't even seen him. He hasn't paid it down. They've taught him to how to run properly this year, which is, I'm surely that's something that comes quite naturally to somebody. It seems a weird thing to teach somebody, but who knows? Maybe this year he can come out and, he could have a big upside. So we'll wait and see on him. Devontae Parker. Now, this is another guy with loads of talent. He's in a Dolphins offense, and you probably think they're going to be run first with a giant because that really suited their style last year. And is Ryan Tannehill that good, really? We don't know, but he's certainly going to be a viable red zone target in that team. You've got Julius Thomas joining at tight end, and he might take a few looks away. But if Parker can stay fit, he's a genuine deep threat. He's got pace, he's got height. He'll get the touchdowns. But can he stay fit? He's not quite as bad as Kevin White, but he's missed a lot of games. So you have to factor that into your risk-reward scenario. My next player is Sammy Watkins. Sammy the Boot Watkins, as we like to know him on the podcast. He spends more time in a boot than he does on the pitch, unfortunately. He started running again now. Let's hope he can do something, because Sammy Watkins is a tremendous player. Don't get me wrong. When you think about Buffalo Bills passing, he's the only one you think of, really. I mean, Robert Woods did a little bit last year, but he's moved on to the Rams. They've got rookie Zay Jones in this year, so he's going to take a bit of work. But can he stay fit? If he does, then Taylor and him can link up and get some nice fantasy points for you, but the risk is there for all to see. My number 5 is Joe Mixon. Now, Joe Mixon is split opinion in many ways. Obviously, we can't condone his off-the-field antics, but hopefully he's put that behind him and we can just concentrate on football. Now, he, in my mind, is probably the best running back in this class, to be honest. And he only dropped to the second round because of his antics. And then the Bengals snapped him up. Now, he has the talent to do it all. He can catch it. He can run it. He's a red zone. He can certainly run the ball in the red zone and get you touchdowns. Hill's a plodder. We know that. He's in his last season with the Bengals. But what I'm worried about, and this is the risk part. Hill will nick touchdowns. He'll steal touchdowns. Will he frustrate you as a fantasy owner, or will we not see Hill? Maybe Mixon wins the job and we just see very little of Hill. But for me, I think Bernard's definitely going to get mixed in as well. I know he's going to miss a few games, probably 2 or 3 games at the start of the season, but he's a third down pass catcher. He's that changing pace guy. So it's a very crowded backfield. The talent's there, but will the opportunity be there? That's the risk for me. Okay, number 4, Martavis Bryant. Now, this guy is one of my favourite prospects for this year. Absolutely love him. He's an absolute beast. He's super big, super quick, high-powered offense. You've got Bell in the backfield, you've got Antonio Brown, you've got targets everywhere. Especially Ben is worth about 8 to 10 points more to Pittsburgh at home. So particularly in the home games, Martavis is going to be a very good player, I think. He could well end up being wide receiver 1. He's that good. Obviously, the risk is there for all to see. Missed all of last year due to falling foul of the NFL's policy on PEDs, I think, wasn't it? But he's also someone who has an unfortunate lack of timing with some of his quotes. He doesn't know when to keep his mouth shut. So I'd be a buyer, but the risk is there. I'm not blind to that, but he's number 4 for me. Number 3 is probably my favourite fantasy player of all time, and that's Beast Mode Marshawn Lynch. Everybody knows Lynch. I mean, I've had him in many fantasy teams, and the way he fights for you, the way he fights for that red zone, he's so good when he gets there. It gives you such a good feeling. I don't think he's getting any quicker, obviously. He's basically missed a year and a half of play, so the risk is there for all to see. Can he come back and do it? We spoke earlier about the age of running backs, and they do go downhill after 30, and he's well past that. But this is the best O-line ever. Seattle's O-line is actually rubbish. The Seahawks O-line is rubbish, and this Raiders O-line isn't. So you've got a great O-line to run it. They can't load the box with Carr playing at quarterback because he's a gunslinger. I don't see how people are going to stop him. I mean, they couldn't stop him when they had no line at Seattle. I think he's still top of the list despite not playing last year for making for yards after contact. I think it is in the NFL for running backs. And that's without playing half season, and he's well clear as well. But you have to factor in the age and the injuries. He had abdominal strain with the Seahawks, and that's something that can linger. But hopefully he's over that now. It does take a time to clear. So if he's all good to go, I'd be a buyer, I think. But I accept the risk is there. Number 2 is Rob Gronkowski. He's had touchdown seasons that amount to 17. You know, he's by far the best tight end on the board. He's actually going a lot lower this year, so he could actually be a value for the first time. I was never a buyer in the first round, but now he's fallen to the second and third round. He gets interesting for me. Obviously, the Patriots didn't seem to miss him last year because I think they won every game that after he went down injured. But make no mistake about it. Gronk's a matchup nightmare. He's going to score you touchdowns. His new contract is based on scoring touchdowns and performances, so he's going to do everything he can to be on that field, and that's what you want from your fantasy player. So I wouldn't be against getting Gronk this year, but we all know the risks that come with it, injury wise. So he's almost like a mummy now. He's got so much strapping on him, but mummies are quite hard to stop as well. So go for it. Number one. This is my ultimate risk-reward player. This is Lev Bell. Everybody knows what he does when he's on the pitch. He's probably, arguably the number one running back in the whole thing because he can pass, he can catch it, he can run with it. High-powered offense, so they can't load the box. The way he's patient with his running, he's got a style of his own, and it's really, really effective. Really tough to stop. He actually didn't get that many touchdowns last year, and he was still an absolute beast. So you imagine if he gets the touchdowns to go with the yards and the yards on the ground and in the air next year. I mean, the sky's the limit for him. He's certainly going to be there or thereabouts, you think, as RB number one overall if he can stay fit. I mean, and that's the key to it because he has had fitness issues. I don't think he's played a full season yet, so. He's also had a drug ban. I mean, the second one wasn't really for taking drugs; it's for missing drugs test. But he actually got a 1-game ban for marijuana, I think, didn't he, the year before? So that's a little bit of a worry. The injuries are a bit more of a worry because he's with his ACL problems. So, but I think for fantasy you've got to play to win, and if you do that, then Lev Bell's got to be on your list. Okay, well. If you're still with me, thanks for watching. I wonder what your opinion is and who your risk and reward players are, and are you willing to take a chance on them, and which ones aren't you willing to? Thank you for watching. If you like what you're seeing from us, then please consider subscribing to the channel and giving us a thumbs up. Thanks very much. Cheers.